and Margie was one of them, and she was a strong campaigner. And but the end result was I won the primary, and then got as I went through the primary, I really learned that you've got to people want to know it's not just enough to be able to say that you're a retired Marine and you did this and you did this and you've run your company, you know what payroll is. But the thing that was obvious was that it was even within people, just within the district, uh, there wasn't a lot of really understanding of why profit was important to small business and how small business generates the number of jobs that they do. And how that, it was great to have the GM plant in Mansfield. It was great to have the cookie companies in Willard and all the different things we had, large corporations. But the thing that really, where the real jobs were produced were by the small business people. And so that was my story, my emphasis. And so, and that was my purpose that I wanted to come to Columbus, is to make sure that I could convey what the real intent of me being here was, to focus on helping in the political sphere people understand why we needed training tax credit, why we needed the ability to support small business, why it was so important to have a regulatory controls. And we're still struggling with those regulatory controls now. And so it's I've been here 15 years. When I complete this year, my term limits are up, and we're still wrestling with regulatory control. Government just likes to control small business, and then we end up like we do to our schools, create lots of mandates, and then unfortunately the ERISA law doesn't apply to small business, but it applies to the large business. So as those mandates that come out, large business are exempt, and small business is the one that has to comply and has to take lots of what they would use to develop other jobs to try to meet the requirements of what the regulatory requirements of the government is. So that was my focus, and I think I've been able to stay on target and keep that vision since I've been here. And we passed I guess started in the first General Assembly in 95, and then I think it was 97, 98 before we actually were moving forward on a process that would, for training tax credit. And my research tells me that would have been in the, let me rephrase that, Maggie's research. The 123rd General Assembly, House Bill 283, was the first bill that we really were able to get training tax credit in, to be able to provide money to employers that they could hire new employees, and through the training of those employees that didn't have the skills to do what they needed, they could put them in those positions in a training process. And so then that really started developing the job opportunity and created new jobs, because those folks didn't have this. Some people, of course, were going to the career centers for additional education, but there's some jobs that small business has that you just have to have the skills. They don't have a specific course at the career center that you can go and take it for 6 months and come and get a job in that position. So the training tax credit initiative was very successful, but we run out of money, as you can imagine. And I had a lot of discussion. I was in the House, and then had a lot of discussion at the time with Senator Finan, that was the president of the Senate, because I didn't have any trouble getting it passed in the House, but there were some senators that were not really interested in thinking about the impact that their kind of attitude was, well, if employers, small business, wants to provide this type of training, let them do it and generate profit from those trainees. my point was, yeah, but you gotta get to that point. If that was the case, we'd never send anybody to the university. We just say if they wanna go to the university, tell them to get a book, start reading, and at some point in time, they'll have enough knowledge they can get a job. And so as a result, I think I would have liked that. I wish we still had the process, that program going, because I think there's still, and we've got different ways with different grants and so forth now that we're doing, and we've been very fortunate, especially in Richland County, through the North Central State College and what they've done with grants, to get grants from the state to be able to do these training programs, and I think you've covered some of those. So I'll stop there. That was your first question.
What other accomplishments, I mean, looking back on 15 years, what are the other of your biggest accomplishments that you feel you've done?
Well, I think, well, you know, and right, it was also in the 123rd General Assembly, was House Bill 740, and that was the creation of the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. If you remember, during that period of time, Mike DeWine was in Washington as our senator, and he'd been working for 2 or 3 years on passing a bill of workforce development. And so we finally got that bill passed, and there was lots of requirements for states all over the nation to react to that, because the Job and Family Services was not yet combined. Most states had a total separate department of family services, and another department that covered jobs and other things, and there wasn't a combined effort, and as a result, the duplication interfered with creating jobs. So I started to work on that, and through Joanne Davison at the time, of course, when I was in the House, was the Speaker of the House, and she said, okay, here's something, you know how important jobs are. This is something that on the big picture, because what it really does is do what we were talking a lot about, restructured government, Ohio government, but not in the broad base of a number of departments, but focuses. Of course, you know that we knew there was lots of waste, fraud, and abuse within those areas, and so by getting it consolidated, and I think the first bill that we introduced was about 3.5 inches thick. It was probably as big as the federal health plan that they passed, that the president recently signed. And but I think that you know, we, as a result of that, with the workforce development component that came out of that, and the management of it, it really had a huge impact. And we're still trying to get things structured in Job and Family Services, as you know, but it's such a huge organization, and before it was spread out so much that you had to go looking to see where all these places were that decisions were made. At least now we've got it in a structure, and one of the